a judge filled with hate, thinking he's untouchable, until one brave young lawyer turns the tables. Judge Charles Thompson had always believed that his position in the Atlanta court system made him untouchable. A white man in his 50s, with decades of experience, he was well respected by his colleagues and community. On the surface, he seemed like a fair and impartial judge. But beneath the polished exterior was a man who harbored deep, undeniable prejudice against black people. For years, Judge Thompson had used his authority to favor white defendants and punish black ones. His bias was subtle but clear. Black defendants often received harsher sentences, even when the evidence didn't support it. He would ignore key testimonies or dismiss cases that didn't align with his views. His racism was the kind that wasn't openly discussed, but was deeply felt by anyone who spent time in his courtroom. Those who worked with him, from the lawyers to the court clerks, knew the truth. However, they kept silent. Fear of losing their jobs, reputations, or any form of retaliation kept them from speaking out. Thompson's power seemed endless, and his actions had remained unchecked for so long that many had accepted it as the way things were. As the years went on, Judge Thompson's sense of invincibility grew. He thought no one would dare challenge him, especially not a young, inexperienced lawyer. He believed the system he had manipulated for so long would continue to shield him from any consequences. The judge had made it clear in every ruling, in every speech, and in every decision, he was above reproach. But in the shadow of his arrogance, a storm was brewing. The moment was coming when his biases would be exposed in a way that even his power couldn't protect him from. Jasmine Williams was a bright, determined young lawyer, fresh out of law school, eager to prove herself in a system that was far from perfect. Raised in a working-class neighborhood in Atlanta, Jasmine had witnessed firsthand the systemic struggles that black individuals faced, especially when it came to the justice system. She had studied tirelessly, committed to making a real difference in the world, and now her chance had arrived. Her first big case brought her into the courtroom of Judge Charles Thompson. The case seemed simple at first. A young black man, Darnell, had been accused of a crime he didn't commit. The evidence was overwhelming in his favor. Witnesses, alibis, and even security footage that could clear his name. However, Thompson had already made up his mind. He wasn't interested in fairness. To him, Darnell was just another black defendant, easy to convict without a second thought. Jasmine quickly realized the immense challenge ahead. It wasn't just the case. It was the system. She knew that Thompson was notorious for favoring white defendants and sending black ones to prison, no matter the evidence. His reputation for racism wasn't a secret, and Jasmine had heard enough stories from other lawyers and court workers about his unfair rulings. But she wasn't going to let that stop her. Jasmine refused to let this case slip by just because Thompson thought he could get away with it. She started digging. Jasmine poured through every detail of the case, searching for anything that could expose the injustice. She wasn't just focused on Darnell's innocence. She was determined to find the cracks in the system that allowed a judge like Thompson to continue making biased decisions. Her late nights were filled with research, reading through past cases, and uncovering inconsistencies in Thompson's rulings. Jasmine even spoke with people who had worked under Thompson, collecting whispers of his previous discriminatory decisions. As the trial date approached, Jasmine began to develop a plan. She realized that to win this case, she needed to do more than just present evidence. She needed to show that Judge Thompson had a pattern of racism, that his biases had tainted his decisions for years. Jasmine knew it wouldn't be easy, but the truth was on her side, and she was ready to take on the challenge. The day of the trial had finally arrived, and Jasmine Williams stepped into the courtroom with a determination that could not be shaken. She had prepared for this moment for weeks, tirelessly reviewing every bit of evidence and uncovering damning details about Judge Charles Thompson's history of biased rulings. This wasn't just a case about Darnell. It was about exposing a system that had allowed a racist judge to get away with discrimination for years. As the trial began, it quickly became clear that Judge Thompson was in his usual element. He gave dismissive glances toward the defense and showed more attention to the prosecution. Jasmine felt the weight of the challenge before her, but she remained unfazed. This wasn't about winning in the traditional sense, it was about showing the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it would be for the judge or the court system. Then, the moment came. Jasmine stood up, her heart pounding but her voice steady. She called out Judge Thompson, referencing past cases where he had unfairly ruled against black defendants. She presented records of his biased decisions, drawing parallels between his actions and the case at hand. But Jasmine didn't stop there. She took it a step further, presenting evidence that tied Thompson's past rulings to a clear pattern of racial bias. Jasmine skillfully linked the judge's actions to the current case, proving that his preconceived notions about black people had influenced his judgment. She used legal precedents, expert testimonies, and even testimonies from those who had witnessed Thompson's behavior firsthand to create a picture of a man who had let his racism define his career. The room fell silent as the full weight of her arguments settled in. Judge Thompson, who had always been in control, now found himself cornered. For the first time, he couldn't hide behind his position. Jasmine had exposed him for what he truly was, a racist who had let his biases dictate justice. The audience, stunned by the audacity and power of her approach, couldn't believe what they were witnessing. The prosecutor, once confident in Thompson's rulings, now hesitated. Jasmine's bold move had changed everything. She had put a racist judge on trial in his own courtroom, and the entire system was forced to take notice.